We have about well, you know that we I really would love for you to meet with us. Yeah, we're gonna go for a month. So that's what that's the final.
Invite me. I'll show up. I'm back on campus.
Okay. So it's going through the pipeline. But I want you to see what that final actually looks like.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We are so thankful. We're so blessed. We're so humbled. And we're very excited to be in this space with you today. I just invite you to take 3 deep breaths. And as we take those deep breaths, I'll walk you through them, so you might do them faster or slower than me. But in those deep breaths, I just invite you to slow down. Many times we come into spaces and we were driving and finding parking and figuring out where we're going to sit, and figuring out all the things. Where do I sign in? The food, orienting ourselves. And so I want to invite you to orient yourself with what brought you here today, with what your intention is for your time that you're sharing space with all these beautiful humans, and how you hope to show up as we're here together. So take a deep breath. I invite you to loosen the bottom of your belly. Feel that belly expand. Release it. Feel free to close your eyes if not. I'm going to take breath 2. Remember, this one's really think about your intention. Let it out. Breath 3. I invite you to think about how you want to show up in this space with each other. Breathe in. To be on this land, to be in this space, to hold all of the history that's in this community, to hold what brings us here together, which is a love for children, a love for our community, our San Antonio, a love for each other, even though the world sometimes pins us against one another, a love and a commitment to get to know each other, to get to know each other's intentions, to get to know what drives each other, to be a support system for one another, as we all kind of refocus on what brought every single person here today, which is a commitment to the children of San Antonio and to the future, the dreams in their minds, the joy and the wonder in their hearts, and what they want to achieve for their life, what they want to see different and true in San Antonio, and really thinking about the educators that are in front of every classroom with our children, educators that look like them, that they can see themselves in, that they can aspire to be, that they can connect with deeply, personally, emotionally, and intellectually. So, my name is Daria Flores Contreras. I grew up in this part of San Antonio. I'm honored to be here. I'm a UTSA alumni, so I'm very honored to be in UTSA space. I work at City Education Partners. We're an education nonprofit that's committed to ensuring that race and economic background does not have an impact on your life outcome. That you can live anywhere in San Antonio, you can be who you are, look how you look, have the experience that you have. Those are all incredible and beautiful assets, and that you can go wildly towards your future and your dreams, and we see education as a pivotal cornerstone to getting there. We know that it's not the only thing. There are many other systems in housing and other issues that create barriers for us as we journey towards our future. We have signed up for that little slice of the pie, for the education slice. A couple of years ago, I feel like the pandemic has worked time in my brain. I researched when Akeem Brown, who's the founder of Essence Prep, emailed me and said, Dolly, I'm opening this school. Where am I going to get teachers that look like my children? I I want to bring the Call Me Mr. program to San Antonio. And I was like, well, I don't know what that is, but I hear you, let's figure it out. So we started getting on calls with Dr. Flores and a couple of the other, I feel like Dr. Ivazolada was there and Dr. Clark was there. We started learning. And then the UTSA team said, you know, we could pay for something, but we have tools and resources and brilliance. Let's build something here in San Antonio together. And you know, we have had a fantastic partnership with Dean Torres, who came in and just really took his seat at the table and used his voice and experience and passion. And that is part of what brought us here today. So looking that it was in 2021, you know, now this initiative has kicked off. We're excited to have support from the San Antonio Area Foundation. We're excited to have support from the Schusterman Foundation. We're excited to have support from Methodist Healthcare Ministries, who just come in and said that matters, and we want to give to that too. And we're excited to showcase some of the brilliance that's happening today, bring the voices to the table. You're going to hear data, you're going to hear stories, you're going to hear heart, and I hope that it inspires you to take your rightful place in this journey, wherever you sit in this community, that you will bring your tools, your energy, and your assets to the table to drive towards this collective commitment for the children of San Antonio. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Dean Torres.
Dahlia, thank you, and for also centering this discussion so beautifully. And you know, you are a product of this community, and I too grew up on the fringes of this community. In San Antonio, I grew up close to Jay High School. Left for a period of time, and I've come back, and you know, the city has really changed, and there's still plenty of challenges and opportunities, and I'm just privileged and honored to serve in this capacity as Dean of the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Texas at San Antonio. So I want to first say that it's just a privilege to kick off this portion of Dream Week, Male Teachers of Color in Education, bold directions towards representation. And I want to extend my gratitude first to our funders and partners in our shared crusade, because that's what it is, really, to improve education quality and outcomes in the San Antonio region. City education partners, my thanks to Dahlia Contreras, Gladys Hernandez, and the cast of others for helping make this event possible. Your support and generosity are making a critical difference, and UTSA is grateful for your support. So, about today. This program marks one meaningful step towards raising awareness and imagining pathways towards a more diverse and inclusive teaching workforce, especially as it relates to males of color. As a fitting bookend to the celebrations around Martin Luther King Day, history reminds us of the struggles that persist in social mobility, access to healthcare, academic attainment, and career access. So we continue to battle occupational myths that are enduring about the teaching profession. We also continue to confront the ongoing struggles in diversifying the labor sector, even after numerous legislative enactments and court decisions, and countless other difficult to pinpoint factors that deter brilliant and dedicated people of color from choosing careers in teaching. Despite the surfeit of research confirming the benefits to short and long-term diverse representation, these patterns are persisting unabated. According to a report from the Education Trust, roughly 65% of Texas K-12 public students are Black or Latino, but only 37% of teachers are Black or Latino. The sobering reality here is that when one considers the net academic and social emotional effects on students of all backgrounds who are not benefiting from a racially an ethically diverse teaching force. What's more, almost 119,000 Black and Latino students attend a school where they have no same-race teachers. Moreover, almost 37% of white students attend a school without a single Black teacher, and 13% attend a school without a single Latino teacher. As you might expect, recent reports suggest the male teacher of color representation is far, far worse. And according to a recent report from the ASCD, only 2% of U.S. public school educators are Black men, and 2% are Latinx men. While we often don't really point to this indicator, that school leadership, those who are leading our schools and we assume are trying to bring about these changes, remains 78% white and 54% female. So, as a way to frame, because you're going to hear different perspectives and insights on this, but this matter is too important. What I feel as someone who is deeply committed to really bringing in and creating a representative workforce, it's important that we develop a multi-conceptual, multi-dimensional model to interpret this. Because we know, as history tells, that often personal circumstances inform street-level bureaucrats, those who are actually engaging with our students. Those interactions with clients are more likely to have a positive experience if they have similar lived experiences. It's interesting, this word representation, because it has historical origins that the connotation isn't exactly positive. So when the founders of this country talked about representation, it was very narrow. It included primarily white landowners or property owners. And as we know, this term has evolved to a different definition today. The one theory that I think is so important in these conversations, and I'm looking at Dr. Lotta and all those who are doing this kind of work, is the idea of representative bureaucracy, which I believe is entirely relevant to these discussions, because the public is better served by a public workforce that reflects the demographics of its constituent population. And by the way, the foundations of this theory have been empirically tested and validated in a number of different areas, such as law enforcement, education, human services, and regulatory agencies. So I want you to think about two kinds of this framing with representative bureaucracy as we hear the stories. There's passive, which means we look and see that the numbers might be increasing. And symbolically, what's transmitted by seeing more teachers, male teachers of color, is that there's representation. However, it's the active that I think we need more of, which would be reflected by formalized and strategic efforts to diversify our workforce, more emphasis on socialization and changing the organizational culture. Let me tell you that the case for pursuing the active, for assuring representative bureaucracy, are so important to the discussions today. And I want to emphasize that the factors are compelling when you think about what are the outcomes, readiness to learn, all the effective dimensions, reducing the achievement gap, cultural competency, and psychological, emotional well-being. I'm very pleased to report that the University of Texas at San Antonio, we have faculty, staff, students committed to disrupting the patterns of underrepresentation. So, in today's discussions, you're going to hear a little bit about this project called MENIST, the Minority Male Educator Mentoring Initiative of South Texas. The mission here is to address the need to increase the population of male teachers of color who are prepared to work with a diverse student population. This project is housed within ATE. Our leader is here, Dr. Belinda Flores, who is sitting in the corner. A living legend in the city of San Antonio, has been a faculty member at UTSA for many years. An unwavering commitment to students succeeding, particularly in our underrepresented areas. We also have Dr. Langston Clark and Dr. Yvette Bolada, who's here with us today. Doctor, let's give him a hand for all. And just a short bit on the aims is to increase the number of male students of color seeking degrees in education by engaging high school students, community college students, and recent college graduates. It's been a pleasure as I kind of circulated around and hearing different stories and what we might do together. This project is exciting for a number of other reasons, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, Emily, thank you for this reminder, that if you know someone who wants to help lead this effort in MENIST as a program coordinator, please contact us. You can contact Emily. Emily, where are you? There you are in the back. Emily.young@utsa.edu. We're accepting applications for this position. We want to transform lives at UTSA, and I'm just pleased to be part of this and play a small part in this journey. So, without further ado, we have our esteemed panelists, and we'll start with the first one. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Abel Gonzalez. I will be moderating our first session. As you know, the idea is for us to truly share the wonderful experiences of the panelists, but to really tell a story from the eyes of many different educators across different levels of education. So before I begin, I'm going to begin with a brief, just naming the panelists, and then as they respond to you, they will be providing some deeper insights into their experiences in the field of education. To my left, I have Leandro Gonzalez, who's a behavior management specialist at Anson Jones Middle School. To his left, I have Alex Gutierrez, dual language instructional specialist at San Antonio Independent School District. And then we have to the end of the table, Carlos Perez, a 7th grade dual language teacher at Southwest ISD. So with that, we begin with our questions. I hope that you will truly listen to these wonderful insights. So my first question, and we'll begin with Leandro. What would you tell a young male of color about the benefits of becoming an educator?
I would say it's challenging at first, to say that, but also exciting. I grew up here on the west side. I dropped out of high school. Got my GED, joined the military, and then my bachelor's and my master's here at UTSA, teacher certification, all that. And I did that because I wanted to help people, but also connect with people that are just like me, that are going through the same paths. And I tell students that I dropped out because I made bad decisions, ran with the wrong people, and I see that daily in my career. And telling young teachers and young male teachers of color that representation matters and your life matters, and really it's a big difference that you can make. And just saying it's rewarding and challenging.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, well, first of all, thanks so much for the invitation. It's privilege being here to share our stories and our insight on education. I would say the same thing. I mean, never give up. My story is pretty similar. I was not the best student when I was in school, and I heard a lot of negative comments on about my future. So in this profession, we have the opportunity to have an impact on our young students, on our young community, and we have the opportunity to change our own lives, but also to change lives in our community. So my answer to that is never give up, believe in yourself. We have a story to share. We have a mission to accomplish, and do it with passion and always believing in yourself. Thank you.
Totally agree with what you're saying. One thing that I always mention to my students, because I'm still in the field, still teaching, and I've been blessed. I do have some mentees that I was able to helping them to become teachers. Two things that I noticed. I've been doing it for 23 years. The love of learning. You know, PD is critical. You have to build yourself. That I noticed that's benefited me as an individual, as a teacher, and the agent of change. I didn't know I'm mentoring this young man that I indirectly motivated him to become a teacher because of his nephew, and so he came and he, you know, because they hear stories and they see that I've been very successful, being teacher of the year twice in 2 different campuses, and being teacher representing San Antonio, City of San Antonio Sabe. It's a great organization, and so I do so much, and people talk, kids will talk, and so I've been getting people that come up to me and ask me, would you mentor me? And yeah, I don't mind, I'll help you out, but just keep in mind those 2 things that you will go through, and you have to put time. But in order to be successful, in order to put the time, the love of learning, there's one thing you have to work on is the worst enemy is yourself. You know, the fear and self-doubting, and it's part of life. You just have to work on that. And so, as you work on that, you have to, it's great to get books of motivating yourself, but also in the field of education. I do push them to in the summer, you gotta put at least minimum 30 hours of PD. The way I see it is that you're an athlete. When they're off, you're off, but they put all the time and effort during the off time period. And when it's game time, you gotta be ready. The spotlight is on you, your classroom is on you. And so I mentor them. I have it's the change of way of doing things. That's how you have to see it. The same thing as education. It's a career. In the summertime, yeah, it's vacation time, but it's time to work. And I normally put 30 hours PD every summer because I have to improve myself. I'm the key. I'm that teacher that will make a big difference. And so yes, you're gonna have obstacles. You have your dreams. You have things like that. You have to set your goals. Actually, I'm finding doing one of my goals. Right now, this is my first year doing middle school, and I thought I was gonna do it sooner. But it took 23 years, but it was in my list. I'm so grateful that I'm doing middle school. It's something I always wanted to do. And you have to write your goals. You have to follow through it, even though everything's going to be there, just don't do it. And it's great and I'm just happy that people come and ask, people that are being successful and guide you, because it's difficult when there's no guidance. I did struggle, but I knew that PD was a key for me. And so that's what I did the first 10 years. And I still do that. I still do, not as 30, I normally do about 15, 20 hours per summer. But those are the conversations that I have, and it's just great to see, even though they're being in the field. Well, I have actually two years into it that they recommended to be teacher of the year, but they can't because there's a clause in the district you have to teach 3 years. But it's just great to see that I'm making a change. Some mentees, both of them, being very successful in the classroom, and they listen and they're following to the most. Sometimes it could be very hardcore. Doing PDs and things like that, but that's the main thing. The love of learning, and you have to accept change and adapt as you go on. And it's just great to see right now. I have two mentees that are doing pretty awesome.
I just wanted to share with around that question is that for me in dealing in, I've worked in public education, community colleges now, and at a university, is that I just continue to send the same message about about understanding the student child's needs and wants, but then letting them know that they can do anything. Many times when they're thinking about education as a potential field, they start off with limitations. They start off with weakness. They start thinking about the unpreparedness. So for me, my consistent message to them is that you can be anything. And sometimes you have to get into discussions about, you know, the limitations. And you're not limited by your address, your zip code, your parents' education level. You have to work hard to erase the barriers that exist in the minds of young people. But then also is that for young men entering into education in a world that doesn't seem like it's male dominated. So I think it's important to try to remove all of the doubt from our young people. Because yes, do I want them to be educators? Absolutely. But maybe there's another goal that they aspire to that they've limited themselves as well. So my next question, and we'll begin with Alex. Tell us about your role as a male of color and the impact you've had on the lives of students.
Yes, I was born and raised in Guadalajara, in Mexico. That's where I started my career. And to be honest, I didn't want to be an educator in the first place. I had other goals in mind. But thank God, watching or observing my mom and my grandma being teachers and principals impacted me tremendously, because I noticed the difference that they were making in students' lives. So somehow I ended up starting my education career in Guadalajara, and then I got hired to do a migrant school in Salem, Oregon. And that's when my life changed completely, because I had the opportunity to teach our migrant students and learn from their stories. And that's where I realized I need to do something about this, and I think education is the key to impact their lives. I have to say that my students in Oregon, my students in San Antonio, my former students in Guadalajara, I'm sure they have impacted me more than I impacted them. That's certain, that's for sure. And but that's a huge responsibility. And I think every day we have the opportunity to teach them and to impact their lives in many ways, not only in the educational side, also in the social life and in their communities. And I think the best feeling to me is when you see them graduate and they are full of life with a lot of goals to accomplish. And it's so great when you realize that that student is now your friend or your colleague, and they are pursuing education as a career as well. And to me, that's the beauty of this job. So not too long ago, I had the opportunity to go back to Oregon to be present in one of my former students' wedding. It is so great when some of my former students in Guadalajara call me just for an advice or to let me know that they are doing their masters or PhDs, and they still remember me as someone who had a positive impact in their life. So I think that's what drives me to keep doing this job. And I think, like I said, it's a huge responsibility and honor to help our students out.
Carlos?
Main thing that I address to my student is seeing the impact as time goes on is building a relationship, not only with the students but with the parents. Then it leads to the community and trust. And with that combo, I tell my kids, just don't take it personal. It's gonna be tough love some days, but sometimes they'll come in and they're not gonna have a hard day or whatever issues are coming in. But once you establish the relationship, knowing that, hey, Chupete's got your back, and of course, I won't tolerate this, certain things. The number one is you. Number one is about learning. Make sure, be successful. That's what I carry on with talking, and as time goes on, you see they come back, you know, and they appreciate that. That I was very straightforward. It's going to be clear, and you have to be clear with the student. This is how I'm going to run, and this is how it's going to be for your benefits. You're a student. You're going to be here learning. We're in an academic setting, so don't take anything personal. But that's the way it's going to be. And I'm here to support, to be your coach, or mentor, or anything. But bottom line, you have to have progress this year academically. And so then you see that how it carries on, and like I mentioned earlier, you know, family members, they hear what you're doing with your, you know, nephews or sons and daughters, and they want to be part of your life, and they invite you, you know, go to weddings, quinceañeras, things like that. But it's great to see that later on that most people they go to either an education or they start their own business. And so it's just great, you know, just to hear those stories that you know, from day one, this is how it's gonna be, and I see it's been paying off, but because you're true, you're being very true and very transparent, and it's about you. It's not gonna be me, but I got the tools to make sure you're gonna be successful, and so just follow through.
Thank you. For me, there's truly a duality in the world of education and being an educator, because you take from them and they take from you. You walk away with some of their issues, their problems. They weigh heavy on your heart when you're in the field of education. Over my last 25 years, I've seen as many tragedies as I've seen victories. And I think it's a privilege to be able to peer in the lives of someone and make subtle changes that can potentially alter the course of their lives. So I understand how important my role is, but I've learned so much from the young people that I work with at all levels of education. Some who have been forced out of traditional education, who have been the individuals that maybe society has given up. So I've had that opportunity, and in reality, I've gained so much from each and every experience. One of my experiences here in the west side of San Antonio at the Good Samaritan Community Services, where I work with GED students. But the reality is that there's nothing like peering in, learning from these individuals, and helping them. But for the most part, over the course of this last 24 years, I've seen wins and losses, and it's the losses I think, unfortunately, that sometimes I have to learn to live with. Leandro?
So currently, in Northside Independent School District, I work the behavior management classroom. And before that, I've 12 years in special education. I'm also coach sports as well. But kind of focus on my last few months in this role that I have. A lot of social emotional behavior, emotional disabilities. It's impacting me more now than all my 12 years. I constantly, on a daily basis, I deal with violent behavior. I deal with, you know, things that normally you wouldn't find in the classroom. You know, I can go on and tell stories like this gentleman. I've seen victories. I've seen loss of life. I've seen it all. And you know, the best things that I've seen is you know, kids coming up to me telling me they're joining the military, they're getting married. They invite you to weddings, they quinceañeras, and those are great. But my role now, it weighs heavy on my heart because I see the things that they go through on a daily basis. You know, I'm from John Jay High School, Lansing Jones area, we know our neighborhood. And it's the things that you see on a daily basis on the news and stuff, it's part of their life. You know, I'm constantly struggling. I saw a tweet this morning that says, I woke up at 2:39 this morning thinking about students. And I dream about my kids. It's crazy. My wife is like, I'm thinking, how can I impact their lives daily, and I think, and I research. I'm heavily into reading, research, peer review articles, discipline, behaviors, because it's the world we live in now. You know, our education system right now, for some reason, with the pandemic, it's just gotten deeper into emotional behaviors. It's gotten deeper into, you know, things that kids are expressing themselves. I see constantly fights and you know, things that go on. And now more than ever, we need more teachers of color, especially that understand the culture that you've been around in your life, and then now you're gonna impact those others. That's how you can do it, because I'm in the front line of this. I'm battling. I was in the military. I've been in Iraq. I've been there. And this is just by far the most challenging that I've ever had. But at the same time, it's rewarding because every day we talk about social emotional behavior. We talk about social skills. Talk about things that are appropriate and not appropriate. Every day we sit and have group therapy sessions. One thing I tell my principal, I'm not a clinician. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist. But teachers, us, we're counselors, we're pastors, we're psychologists, we're coaches, we're educators, we're role models, we're everything that they're not. We're absentee fathers. They don't have any fathers in their country. We had a basketball game this week, and we lost pretty badly. And one of my athletes he came in and apologized to me, and he's like, "I'm sorry, coach." I said, "What are you sorry about? You tried your best, you did your best. We're better athletes, and that's all I can ask for." And he gave me a hug, and I wanted to walk out and be like, "Man, we lost," but that's the impact that you can have.
Thank you. Now on to the personal impact. How has your experience as an educator impacted your life? And you may want to share personal, professional, but how has your experience as an educator impacted your life?
Okay, so I'm going to take you back to 1983. Third grade, I'm from the border town, Eagle Pass, Texas, and so third grade was a horrible year for me. Everything was beautiful, nice, excellent. And then I see, hear, and see, and taste, and smell the word English. Came into the classroom, and it was been very devastated, and everything was in Spanish. I was learning. I don't know what was going on, and I would look at my teacher, and of course, I could relate to her, Mexican, and my kids are Mexicans, and how dare you change in the language? I was just very clueless, about this language, and so I struggled. And you check yourself, then you look at your friends, same thing. They're speaking like, how do you know English, or speak or say some words? Because I wasn't, I just knew everything about Spanish. Going through all those phases and getting behind academically, it was very emotional, but I was able to put the time, had the teacher support and everything like that. And so now that I'm in this role, I think that's what caused, I believe, it's the passion, the love of teaching, and you don't want your kids to go through what I went through just because of language. And so I do, that's why I take it, for me, personally, I need to build myself. I need to be academically, have the tools, the answers, because I don't want them, I don't want my kids, any students that are in my classroom to go through what I went through. And make the learning as comprehensible as possible, enjoyable. And you're right, it's tough right now. It's post-COVID, very different. Again, the change of agent, you need to learn, you need to adapt, you need to see what's going on. And so that's what impacted me. I'm happy that I went through it, and I'm happy where I am. It's meant to be that I'm a teacher and helping the community, my kids. As much as I can, so they don't get those punches so hard that I thought it was very devastating for me as a third grader. And so I'm in a position to help as much as I can with my students to love learning, enjoy learning, and be creative about learning. Even though, yes, we get the standards, yes, we have the tests, but there's different ways. As you learn, as you go through it, make it entertaining, and enjoy learning in different aspects. So that's my part of the impact.
Alex?
Yeah, when I go back, 20 years ago, and I was not so sure about education, and I go throughout my journey, I am very thankful of the people that always the lead on me and pushed me to do the job that I do. I think so many people back then never thought about me finishing college or accomplishing a master's program, and especially in a different country. So I was that kind of a person, or that student that always heard negative comments from my teachers, and the fact that I'm now in their shoes reminds me that I don't want to be that person, that I want to be the teacher that always supports their students. I think they all have the potential to reach their goals. I think it's our responsibility, and in 20 years, I have had the opportunity not only to teach my students, but also to teach, computer skills classes for parents, English 1 classes for parents when my English was not even good enough. Still, not is, right? I'm still learning. I'm an ELL person, but I'm not afraid of challenges. And I went from teaching Spanish, math, social studies, whatever they need me. I do it because there's a need, and I feel responsible to do it. So now, my current role as a dual language specialist in this community, I'm very grateful, and I wake up every day with a lot of motivation to keep doing my job, just like 20 years ago. So, thank you. Leandro?
Oh man. So I'd like to go back also when I was in high school. A teacher told me one time that I was worthless. I was a clown. I'd like to joke around, and she took me outside. She said, "You're worthless. You're never going to be anything." That week I dropped out of high school. So I always say this: watch what you say to people. It's could impact their life. For the negative, it could have happened to me in the negative way. Gang infested area, and I roll with those people, but I just something inside of me said, "I'm not gonna prove this to you." And I made it my life's mission to prove that. Believe it or not, I remember her name and all that. And now, fast forward to now, how has education impacted my life? I make sure at least I can help one student. I always say one student, somebody, I can help somebody. If it's a positive thing that I consider. Affirmations, because a lot of our kids don't get affirmations at home. I'm constantly affirming, constantly. Thank you for bringing a pencil to class. Thank you for tucking in your shirt. Thank you for pulling up the pens. Thank you for turning in your work. Thank you for putting your name on your paper. Those little simple things, tidbits, because they don't hear thank you enough. Because of their environment. Because I grew up in that environment. That's why we need teachers of color that grew up, that know the culture, that know how it is to be like, you know what, you're worthless, or you know what, you're never gonna be in anything. You're never gonna do this. Or you know what, man, your friend died. Now, hey, you're gonna die. Hey, you're smoking weed. You know what happens when people smoke weed? This would happen. You know, so these are things that I was a part of, but now I resonate that and I turn that around, make it into positive. That's how it's impacted my life. To be a positive role model as much as I can. You know, a lot of times kids tell me, you know, sir, why do you want to be a teacher? Why are you a teacher? I said, because I want to make sure you're all right. I just want to make sure you're all right. That's it. Are you okay? And they're like, that's a weird answer. And I make those, and I build those relationships on a constant basis with everyone. You know, in the hallways, are, hey sir, they come up, hey sir, you know, what's up, what's up? You know, they're always like that because they know that you know, one kid told me, sir, you yell, but you yell nice. I don't know what that means. You know, when I coach, I don't say foul language, but it's like, you know, I try to be as positive as I can. I know my basketball team is not really good, but I tell them every day. Come to practice. You know, you work hard. These are the things we try to teach because life is hard. You know, if you just give up, right? If you just give up, all you do is give up. Then you're gonna give up on little things in life. And those are the things. And lastly, I used to teach math. The kids would always tell me, why do we have to take algebra? We're not gonna use it. And I always tell them, we gotta solve for X. Solving for X. What's X? The unknown variable. It's unknown. Right? The unknown variable is the light. How am I going to pay my light bill? How am I going to pay my electricity? That's the unknown variable. Right? How am I going to get to work when I just woke up and I missed the bus? That's the unknown variable. That's what X is. To make sure our minds are always going. Make sure your mind is always going like a gear all the time. And kids look at me like, I don't know what that means, but you know, it's impacted me greatly. It's impacted, you know. Going through drive-thrus and seeing kids that didn't graduate or whatnot, they're working, and they tell you, I'm going to SAC, sir. It's like, man, they already won. That's it. Thank you for that.
Yes, yes. I think in closing, for me, as I think about the role of being an educator and working in the world of education, really all of this has taught me to be more stubborn, more focused. The last 20 years of my career have been focused on educational access. Is that how do I give students educational opportunities who may not have received those through any other intervention? So as I think about those things, I was discouraged from going to college right out of high school. You know, my counselor probably was working with his teacher. But had said, you know, you just don't need to go to college. I'm like, you're not college material, you know, so that derailed my life for 2 years. But the reality is that it taught me that language is important. More importantly is that we need to think of the assets of our young men and our young people. They come with so much strength and resilience, and it's up to us to recognize that. I think that it's helped me become more focused on trying to create educational access opportunities across our city. So much so that at this point we've grown multiple grow your own teacher education preparation pathways at UTSA to the College of Education. We have partnerships through San Antonio Independent School District. We have partnerships now that are evolving into Northside Independent School District to create dual credit educational pathways into the profession of education. But I mean, I think it was all meant to be. But because I've been so fixated, now I'm fixing up a larger, more global problem. We see that, you know, the field of education isn't seeing as much traffic as it did several years ago across higher ed institutions. So I think it's going to take individuals like the panelists that are sitting here with you to continue to be advocates, but then also is to think about how they create and expand the pathway for all students. Like I said, our students don't have limits, but in reality is that we need to be able to build that bridge to their success, wherever that may take them. And I always go back to it's not about your parents' zip code or where you live or their educational attainment. You can go anywhere. Continue to send that message, think about language, and really be that positive light in their lives. And for me, it's continuing to build the pathway for the future. So continue to be advocates. I want to thank all of the panelists for this opportunity. Round of applause. Thank you.
As a token of our appreciation to panelists and moderators, while we transition to the next panel, feel free to stretch your legs, grab some fruit, coffee, bathrooms are in the back. We'll start in 1 minute with the next panel.
So welcome to panel 2. And panel 2 insights the male teacher color experience. And so I'm gonna introduce the folks here, but I just want to give you a little bit more background information on it. So they're part of the City of Education and partners serving more male teachers of color. So these educators that you have here are representative from representative schools in San Antonio, and they're coming up with big and bold, innovative ideas for increasing and strengthening the representation, engagement, and leadership of male teachers of color in San Antonio. So I'll introduce him here briefly. So we have next to me I have Benjamin Garcia, and so he came from the south side of San Antonio, and he teaches at Cooper University of Prep, and so he's currently in his 7th year of teaching there. We also have Captain Tate. He's originally from Mobile, Alabama, and he moved to San Antonio once he got out of the military. He also teaches at Kip Somos College Prep School. And so, and we also have Damon Lutz. And Damon Lutz was born and raised in the heart of the University of Brooklyn, and currently serves as a director of operations at Essence Preparatory Public School. He's a director of operations, a student-based leadership role that oversees all operations and functions necessary to run a high-performing school. And again, we have Anthony Hurd. Anthony Hurd is a passionate third-grade Spanish teacher in San Antonio, Texas. He graduated with a BA with specialization in international business. He fulfilled his 2-year commitment with Teach for America, and now he's relocated to San Antonio. We'll have to talk about, you said that you want to discuss some of the myths of Black teachers teaching Spanish. So let's talk about that. I know quite a bit of them. So thank you for joining us. And so we have some questions here for our panel. It'll be kind of a free-flowing conversation as well. So I want to start with inspiration with you all. So tell us what inspired you to be an educator, and was there any opposition or support in that process in any way?
For me, what inspired me to be an educator was my high school basketball coach. That's the first man role model that I really had in my life, and he gave me hope. He believed in me before I believed in myself and my abilities, and it went beyond the basketball court. And I appreciate him for that. I value that, and he's still my mentor to this day. So when I was leaving the military, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I get out. So I called him, and he was like, "Man, go into teaching." Like, you already mentor kids going to teaching, and it'll be something that I know you'll like, and you'll be able to coach at the same time. So he was my inspiration for me to teach.
For me, I would say that it was my, well, I grew up with my mom being a substitute teacher. Actually, that's the only job I ever knew she ever had, was be a substitute teacher. And so watching her going through the educational route kind of inspired me, even though I was like a person who said, I don't know if y'all can relate, like who said like, I would never work with kids, like I'll never be a teacher. But it just somehow happened, and so I became a teacher. And similar to you, like I had like my band director who was a strong male figure in my life that I didn't have growing up. And so seeing him be that representation for me as like an educator and also like a leader really inspired me to be the type of educator that I am today.
Yeah, so I went to school at Burbank, and I like remember like doing math classes, and I was not part of the IB program. With Burbank, there's like an IB program, and there's like a not, and you get chosen to be on the IB program since middle school. And I was very much like, I very well knew that they did not choose me. I was in regular classes. I have a chip on my shoulder for the rest of my life for that, always. And I remember like finishing my work really quickly in math, and I was like, wow, okay, there's like 30 minutes left in class, like what do I do? And like there's a lot of my peers that were struggling, so I'd go over and I would help them, and I found that like really fun. And I was like, all right, like math teacher. So I went to college, and I was like, math teacher, took calculus 2. I was like, math teacher is not my thing. As far as I want. And so I switched to teaching science.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's very amazing to see you all here today. For me, what inspired me to be an educator is my first teacher, and I'll say that's my mother. I didn't grow up with my father. My father passed away when I was 5 years old. I lived in Brooklyn, New York. It's a little bit rough. So my mom taught me how to navigate the streets, navigate your school environment, and navigate the people that are against you, I would like to say. And that was important for me. Now, it kind of drove me into the military. I was a Marine, all right? My mother was strict, and I guess that's what made me go to the Marine Corps. And in the Marine Corps, I gained the love to be a stronger educator. Prior to the Marine Corps, yes, I did some tutoring. I was a teaching assistant in a math class in the Bronx, New York. But I really felt my inspiration come from the people that I was sitting in front of me every day. So I was truly inspired, I was motivated, I'm passionate, and that drive actually came from my mother, so I appreciate her.
So, did any of you experience any opposition or challenges when wanting to become a teacher?
I have this vivid memory. Sorry, my college professors. I remember I was like part of the teaching program, and like I had just done this observation, and my teaching professor was like, "Hey, send me your lesson plans," and I was like, "All right," like, and I think I just attached the file and I was like, "Here you go, thanks." Sent it off, and then he wrote me like this like 4-paragraph thing around like professionalism, and I was like, "Oh, all right, that's fair." And so I was like, I tried again, and I was like, "To whom it may concern." I was feeling a type of way, I'll be honest. The professor didn't like that. Next observation, we had a conversation about it. And I remember, it was like, I think he was really feeling a type of way about it. Because he like started yelling at me, and then I started yelling back. This was at a school, like we were at a school at the time. And I was put on like probation for it. And I remember going to the dean and I'm like, yes, like, to whom it may concern, I get that was wrong, for sure. I was feeling a type of way. But he also yelled at me, and like, I like just responded because he was yelling. And they were like, you have to like mend this, like this is you. And like, you have 3 months to mend this, otherwise like, you will not become a teacher. And I was like, oh, like that, like, I feel like, okay, like maybe teaching isn't my thing. Like I felt like I was doing all the right things, and then this moment came up, and like maybe it's not. Luckily, I had like a really good other professor for teaching that I was like, okay, I'm not crazy, right? Like this is wrong. And he's like, it's wrong. I can't tell you, but it is wrong. It's true. And so he supported me, and we were able to get through it.
Well, for me, yeah, I'll say that when I started, I already initially knew I wanted to be a teacher. So when I came here, I went to St. Philip's College and got my associates in education. And when I was transferring to my 4th year, I was talking to my advisor, and she basically talked me into chasing the money instead of chasing what I really wanted to do. So I went and got my degree in information technology with my mind in cybersecurity. And so I worked in the degree field for a year, and I realized that I really don't like it. And so what I'm thankful for my advisor was she gave me that information about the Out Teacher Cert program. And so when I realized that that path wasn't for me, I went back and got my Out Cert in technology application, and I started teaching on the middle school level. So I say, and then now I teach AP Computer Science Principal, Java coding in high school now. And so to not let nobody make you follow the money, always stay true and stay strong to what you believe in and what you really want to do. And it's not always about the dollar every time. It's about your passion.
For me, I started teaching during the pandemic. So I graduated college in 2020 from Georgia State, my BA in Spanish and International Business. And then so I went to Texas, to here, from Georgia, from TFA, Teach for America. Like they place you, where you want to be. And so that whole process was extremely difficult, not just because it was a pandemic, but also because it was like new for me, transitioning to a new state and like a new environment, community, the whole 9 yards. And so I didn't really, and then TFA was changing at that point. They had to like really pivot at that point. There are some like core members in here, like the T2020 core members, like you know how it was. But it was very hard transitioning here at that time. And so for me, trying to get, because I didn't major in education, right, in college. And so jumping into this teaching field, I expected to have a lot of like support and like training over the summer. Didn't have that, not TFA's part, but just because they had to pivot real fast, and so they didn't. I didn't feel like I was really prepared jumping into teaching like my first year and like the first months in this. So I had to like kind of like just go with it and like just jump in the middle of the thing. I remember being so terrified my first day of my first year in front of all these kids. Like, oh my gosh, and they're looking at me like, what do I do? And so, but I'm grateful for like my school community that I had, the other coworkers that I had, because we're like a very newish school at Caucus Rose in Southeast Texas. We're very like new, so like all the people that I started with, we're still working and we're like all growing like together. So we all was in the same boat. Like we all was like, yeah, this is new for us. And we don't know how to do X, Y, Z. So we're all here. But yeah, that's kind of like what my initial journey was in the pandemic.
I would say an opposition for me was the fact that it wasn't talked about at all. Being a teacher, being an educator, working in schools, it wasn't the beauty. All right, it wasn't represented at all. If you go to a school and you have parents come up and they show their job, right? You don't never see anyone talk about the teaching. So it wasn't a thought process. For me, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to be a doctor. That was talked about in my house. That's what you'll be. That's what you'll do, right? So be a doctor, be a firefighter, be a police officer, but it's never the beauty of teaching. So that was my first opposition. My second opposition came from people, unfortunately. You talk white, right? Or why do you dress like that, right? Or, you have a briefcase. Your con don't carry briefcase, and I quote, right? So the opposition came from system and also from people for me. So that's why I'm here to break that down.
So this next question is about impact. So, what would you want emerging male teachers of color to know about the impact that teaching has had in your life and the impact that you have on students in the community?
For me, it's a big impact to be able to see somebody that look like you, talk like you, and dress like you, teach you, and give you motivation and hope that you can do it as well. Because just being a male teacher of color, a lot of things they think you can do is be an entertainer, a ball player, or those type of things. They don't tell you other professions that you really can be and make an impact on other people's lives. And for me, I wanted to be that. I wanted to be the hope to the kids because I know that situation. I come from that environment, and for them to see me and be able to communicate and relate to me, that I give them hope that no matter what situation they may be in, no matter what they may be experiencing in their life, I teach them hard work pays off. As long as you continue to work hard, you can accomplish and overcome any situation or barrier that you may be receiving with hard work. And that's what I try to teach my kids and motivate them. So to be able to see someone that looks like you is super valuable inside the classroom on the young kids.
You know, I think for me, the impact that I have, because I just have so many different identities. So like being not only a teacher, but like a teacher of color, being a part of the queer community, being a Black person that also speaks Spanish, those are all different things that just show up differently for my students. And so when they see me, they're like, wait, you're the Spanish teacher?
I love that.
I remember one time, no, honestly, we had like a parent teacher, we had like a drive-through progress report pickup, like drive-through because of the pandemic, you know. And then there was a parent that was like, all the teachers are all right here, you know, all the teachers. And he's like, I'm looking for the Spanish teacher, and I was in the front. I need to speak to the Spanish teacher. And I'm just like, hola. And he's like, okay. So getting that, I get that reaction a lot because people don't expect me to be like this. Like my students don't think, they're like, oh, are you Cuban? Or are you Dominican? Or are you this or you that? And I'm like, no, Black. And I think it's very important for me to stand in my truth and be like, yeah, I am a Black person that speaks Spanish. Because you can also, like, it's possible for you to, like, I studied abroad, I did what I had to do, studied in school, learned by myself, all of the things to get to where I am now. And like, you can do it too. That's like my mission in my school to do, is to like break those barriers. You don't have to be Latino, or like you don't have to come from these different backgrounds to only speak the language. You can be whatever. You can be a Black person who speaks Spanish, and that has lots of opportunities. Like it really does. People see me and they be like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe you speak Spanish. Like, sí, claro que sí. Like they do these things. I want that for my children. I want that for my kids, like my students. I want them to experience that growing up. So that's the kind of impact that I want. And like I know that like I have a very strong presence in my classroom to be that way, be authentic in myself and my truth, to inspire them. Because they do ask me a lot of questions. They ask me like, you know, well, how did you learn Spanish? Or like, sir, how much can you get paid doing this, doing that? And I tell them to like inspire them to do so, to speak a second language or a third language. Because like, you know, the world is changing. You know, things are going digital now. You have to be able to be diverse in your communication skills, and speaking multiple languages is definitely a leg up. And that's what I want to get my students prepared for.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think this group has really helped me just think about like my own students and like how I want them to be educators. I think ever since joining the group and having our meetings, I think I've been more cognizant of like reaching out to my students and just being like, hey, like, have you ever thought about being a teacher? And they're like, oh, like, no, sir, like, my grades aren't there. Do you know about my behavior? And I'm like, yes, like, I think that's why you should be a teacher. Like, we're not looking for perfect students to be teachers. Like, I wasn't a perfect student. Like, that's not what we want from you. We want to see you here, right? Like, I serve in the same community that I grew up in. I'm like 3 blocks away from my parents' house. That they still live there. And so it's honestly a blessing for me because every weekend I see some students. And so it's really fun, honestly, going to those restaurants and just being like, hey. Yeah, sometimes I know some old students that have graduated and they're like, oh, I'm looking at this one, so I'll text them and be like, hey, do you have a reservation for 7 p.m.? And they're like, I got you. And it's like, yeah, like I want my students to serve the same communities, right? Like I want you to come back here, teach with me. That way they can see that, hey, you went to this school. Like, let's do this together. We're building just not like our school, but our whole community around here. And so I think like this group has been a blessing, and just being able to talk to my students more about like, yes, please be a teacher. Like, yes, I know your absences haven't been great, but like, let's figure out why. Let's figure out like, there's gonna be other students that their absences aren't even great, but you're gonna know how to reach them, and like, that's why we need you.
Say my impact at my school, Essex Preparatory Public School, it comes from my experiences. A lot of the scholars that I have, they've never experienced anything outside of the east side of San Antonio. All right, so it comes with a lot of conversation. It comes with showing them things, places that I've been. I've been to 17 countries. And I train martial arts. So on Wednesdays at 4:30 to 6 p.m., I teach my scholars martial arts, right? Mixed martial arts, judo, jiu-jitsu, boxing, all of these things, not just so they can learn how to defend themselves, but also how to learn how to become confident. The beautiful thing of that, I have more female students than male students. I love the fact that they have the ability, that they feel safe enough to come in this space and to learn, to understand, to learn leadership at a young age, to have the conversation, to understand, well, okay, Ohio gozaimasu, what does that mean? They learned Japanese from me, right? I spent 3 years in Japanese before I moved to San Antonio 7 months ago. So I think my impact comes from my experience in that I can actually influence them to see different things that they can do outside of the east side of San Antonio, but not just outside of the east side of San Antonio. Make sure the east side of San Antonio can grow, right? Because it's not always about getting out. It's about what can you do in your community, and that's the influence, and that's the impact where you gotta have. Let's grow, okay, let's build, okay, cool. My school, we have chickens, right? We have a garden, right? We have a DJ program, right? We're getting a tech program, right? Right? So what we're doing, I think the impact is not just through me. I think the impact is just like what he stated. The impact is from all of us coming together and seeing how we can get together and notice how we can strive to do more for them, right? Because, you know, once we're out of these seats, who's going to be there next? That's the question. But now it's like, is the conversation different? It's not about motivation; it's about transformation. And that's how I look at it.
So on that, you know, it's a good segue to this last question here. So what do you want the folks who support male teachers of color to know in their efforts of recruiting, developing, supporting, or retaining them?
For me, for recruiting purposes, they need to know that black men are smart, and they can be, and they can guide other underprivileged kids. Cause that was my problem. Like I go into these schools and a lot first thing they ask me, are you a PE teacher? Are you a special education teacher? No, I teach programming, and I can code in 3 different languages when I know 5. And it'd be amazing when I say that because they don't see a lot of people that look like me that can do that.
Right.
So they try to hinder my abilities of what I can do and the impact I can make on the student body. And I think that's the problem for one. And for just retaining, I think they have to, a lot of other teachers that be within schools, cause I know just at certain schools I've been at that they never in their life, and they've been here in San Antonio for 30 plus years, they never seen a black male teacher. And so they don't even know how to approach you, talk to you, speak to you, or even come to you because they think it's gonna be confrontations or problems. And I think that's the biggest problem when you going into these classrooms. I think the people that's doing the hiring process got to go away from thinking you have to been and did something with experience and understand that you can be qualified and you have at least amount of experience. Because that's another thing too when they recruit, because you got a lot of black men that want to be teachers, but they just get in the field, they don't have no experience. And they won't give them the opportunity to serve the community that they can make a bigger impact on because they don't have no experience. They'd rather go hire someone who's been doing it 30 years, but that don't mean they qualified. And so I think that's the biggest thing. They got to go away from, okay, you need X amount of experience to be a good teacher. You need to be qualified to teach the community that you serve. Yeah. And that's how I feel.
I would like to say, for recruitment, I think it's important that you recruit people that reflect your students. If you have a predominantly black and brown student population, you need to have that direct representation in front of that class. Again, we already dispelled and understand all the reasons why, right? But let's take it back a little bit. If you look at teaching in America, what do you always hear? It's hard. We don't get paid enough money, right? It's a lot of negativity. So, who wants to become a teacher with that? I think it's re-imaging what teaching looks like. Oh, it's beautiful to step in front of those kids. Oh, we changing lives today. Every single morning at our school during arrival, we play music that they love. No curses and all stuff like that. I shouldn't say that. I don't want my superintendent to call me. And at dismissal, we play music that they love. On Christmas, we're playing Christmas music. Right? So again, it comes with recruiting the people that look like your students. That doesn't mean that we can't have a white teacher inside your school. Let me be clear with that. It's important that you do, because we have to be able to understand each other and be able to work with each other, because that's how America is. We have to be able to be influential with those students and not say, well, this is only this type of school. No. We're here to do it together. Now, environment. Is the environment conducive for black and brown teachers, male teachers? Is it okay for them to come in and feel comfortable to be there? Or they have to worry about how they dress, if they got a haircut or not, if they're shaved, if they have holes in their jackets or in their jeans, or anything that can dispel the fact that my ability to influence and teach these kids don't have nothing to do with this. What does your employee handbook look like? So you kind of have to challenge your leadership. And that's what it takes. It takes for you to challenge your superintendents, principals, etc., for them to really truly understand what it is to have male teachers of color inside the classroom. Do they really want that? We talk about it. Again, it's not about motivation, it's about transformation. We talk about, we want these people in the classroom, but what does your recruitment and returning plan look like? Is there any intentionality in that? Does it say, I will go to a HBCU and get 5 candidates to come and apply to my school? Does your recruitment and retention plan say that? Right? Does it say, I'm going to go outside of the state and go to Georgia to go find a great teacher? Right? It's truly about intentionality. And we have to understand that a big word that we kind of run from, it's a crisis that we don't have male teachers of color in the classroom. A big word, it's a crisis. And if it's not looked like as a crisis, then you won't get anybody. If there's a fire outside right now, what happens? The fire department comes, 911, the ambulance, everybody responds. That's how we gotta look at education. We gotta respond like it's a crisis. That's how I feel about it.
I would say for me, it's about the culture. I think that it's important to have male teachers, black male teachers in the classroom because of the culture of it, right? Like a lot of our students will identify and bond more with teachers who look like them. I have so many students that are like, I call them my work son, my work daughter, because they came to me and they confide in me, they tell me stuff that they wouldn't tell their other teachers. They really became like my own children. Even though I'm 27, I'm like, oh, I don't want kids. But they are like my kids. My kids, I look out for them. They want food. I go get it to them. I DoorDash. Like, oh, okay. But we have that bond. We have that relationship, and that's important because I realize that they don't get that at home. A lot of them have, broken families. They have different things going on inside and outside of families. So when they come to school, they're looking for that love. They're looking for that sense of belonging, that culture that you can get, that sometimes their friends can't even get, that they might need to get from a higher up, a person who's an adult from them. And so being a teacher, I see myself as that person who can represent and stand in for their father figure, for their mentor, for their counselor, or these other things that they told me. I'm like, man, I don't want to be like your daddy, but like, I became that like naturally. If your kids tell you, like because in my school we have like it's like 80% like Hispanic. They talk about how their mom threw their chocolate at them. Would you understand what that means? If a black student told you that their mom brought out switch, would you understand what that means if you were part of a different culture? Would you, right? So the ability to be able to connect with your kids that way and be like, dang, your mama did that too. Oh, to talk to them that kind of way, it makes them trust you a little more, right? So we need more teachers like that. We need more teachers who understand the culture, who grew up like that, who can kind of model and teach the students like that from the cultural aspect. We need a lot of, and that's what we're missing. That's like the key to getting a lot of students to stay in those schools, a lot of students to not drop out, to stay with their teachers, to like grow up and then go do great things in life post high school, post regular school, because they bond so well with their teachers. So that's what I say, like through the cultural aspect.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like it takes a village, right? Like it takes a lot of us to do this work, and like we brought up elementary school job fairs, like where are the teachers there, right? Like where are the male teachers there? Middle school job fairs too. I know like some high schools do programs where students can like work on being a teacher, can shadow a teacher. I think it takes a village. It takes a lot of us to just say like, hey, we're willing to do this work from very early on, right? Like they should hear, like we should be changing the narrative around like, yes, it's possible for you to be a teacher. Teaching is like the most fun job ever. Like, yeah, I think some of my students sometimes say like, isn't it boring that you're teaching the same thing 8 times? And I'm like, y'all are so different. It's never the same. And so it's just like, you don't know what you're gonna get that day. It's just so fun. And I definitely always love sharing that with students. I think we should share that at job fairs in elementary school, all the way to college. And just, it is also like a sustainable career. Like, you don't have to burn out after 4 years and leave. Like, that's just not what has to happen. Like, there are sustainable ways to be a teacher. And like, that's also several conversations we need to have. And like Carlos Bettis is right. Like, we need to be mentors, right, to other teachers. Like, I would love to just go out and just be like, hey, this is possible. Like, I understand that you're feeling burnt out. Like, let me help. Like, all of us would be willing to do that work too. And so, yeah, it takes a lot of work from a lot of people, but it's very, very possible.
Well, let's have a round of applause for
People are taking pictures over
We all shift, it's hilarious. He goes that way and I go right down the middle. We all shift, I go this way.
So, good morning, everybody. My name is Benson Demande. I'm from this great university of Texas at San Antonio, and I'll be having a dialogue today on this topic with my colleague, Dr. Salis. I just think that, not I think, we were supposed to have Dr. Haddad. I don't know, maybe people have gotten any information about Dr. Haddad coming in. But we'll get started anyway if you'll find us in the middle as we continue. You know, Dr. Ryan, my chair is in the room. And I'm kind of like thinking, she said to me, well, I'm going to be taking notes for your annual review, so I have to really talk good today. All right. Some of you may or may not know, but I was born and raised in South Africa, and as you could tell with my, you listen to my accent. And growing up in South Africa, the career of teaching has or had a different meaning in the black community. And since the two of us, we could even have that dialogue a little bit to see, because when you do international and comparative, we learn from each other to see how we could use experiences from other places. So, Dr. Solis, I'm not going to read, or maybe I should. I should introduce you. Okay. So, Dr. Solis is an associate professor in the Department of Bilingual and Bicultural Studies in the College of Education for Human Development at this University of Texas, San Antonio. He holds a PhD from University of California, Berkeley, as well as an undergrad from Stanford. And your research interest is really great because you're looking at the development of academic literacy and practices with second language learners, preparing novice bilingual teachers, intentions and adaptations of classroom learning activities. And most importantly, you also seek to understand academic transitions of older school-age language and minority students. So that's my introduction of you, and I'll just have you introduce yourself a little bit before we go to the actual questions and
Thank you, Nomani. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good
morning. Buenos dias. This is such a pleasure to be here with you on this panel, listening to the previous panelists. I think some of you are still here. Some of you are still here, and I drew a lot of inspiration from your words, reaffirmation from your words, although which we're doing here nationally, but especially now in San Antonio, and it's a pleasure to be here. So yeah. No, I don't know what this is gonna be fun at dialogue, but I think in terms of my background, you know, I was just talking to a few folks here this morning that just having to be here this morning, I've been telling folks along the week, I do research with folks around the country. But I was saying I'm gonna come to a panel this day. Teachers of color, male teachers of color, and they started telling me about what's going on in California, other parts of the country, and there is a growing movement, thankfully, hopefully soon realized. Of the importance of promoting, supporting male teachers of color. And I was, just that alone, having to come here, I think hopefully this conversation will continue on later today with other folks. I've had conversations several times with my wife, Maria, already. She knows a whole lot about this topic. And I was also recollecting this morning that as my first year's teaching was actually in a mostly boys middle school. And I hadn't thought about that in a long time. Particular school district in East Palo Alto in the Bay Area, mostly African American and Mexican American community. We're trying to support students who were on the way out, right? On the way out. So they were probably not doing a lot of legal things at the time, but they were trying to figure out ways to support them before they were pushed out of the school situation in middle school. And so I was brought on as a new teacher, and I worked mostly with young boys, young men, and it brought back memories of those experiences early on. And anyway, so since then I've done a lot of work in California, Oakland, San Francisco, and of course now in San Antonio for 10 years now. So, but I'm happy to talk to you more about that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank Professor Liz for sharing that background. And as we get into little questions, I know if the Dean or Dr. Flores will not be in the room, we'll start talking about that. Yeah, right. But let's stick to the work. So, and I'll share with you as well and the audience. And do you have a single experience that led you to follow the teaching as a career path for you, which probably you could share with some of our male teachers' perspective, male teachers of color here, just a single experience that propelled you to take this path?
I don't know. You know, it's going to be classic, but I'm not going to give you one experience.
Okay,
right?
good.
I'm going to try. But I was, I had the pleasure of having been with at least two teachers that I think about often who were men, who were teachers in my life. One was Mr. Matsueda in high school, who was a man who was actually interned during World War II. He's a Japanese American, and he was my history teacher in high school, and he would talk to me about the present racism as a teacher that he felt being a Japanese American teacher, and I was I was about a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, and I would listen to him and tell me, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I thought all teachers got along. I thought all teachers were on the same page, but no, Mr. Matsueda would confide with me and bring me into these conversations, and made me think more critically about education is being both an impediment but also a possibility for change. And so he was a very serious man, right? And I also think about someone like Dr. Smith, Mr. Smith. We do have a Dr. Smith in our department, but Mr. Smith, and he was my 7th grade language arts teacher. And he African American teacher who every lesson, he would start the lesson by saying, all right, it's time to play school. It's time to play school. And to me, this phrase of playing school kind of resonated with me as a student because I thought school was always fun. I was called a school boy. Yes. I love being in school. I couldn't wait to start school in kindergarten. I couldn't wait to go back to school throughout. And so just being in school, it just felt really safe. I'm still in school right now. That's but the idea of having to play and be doing something fun, people like Mr. Smith made me feel comfortable. So those are things that I think about. Yeah. I also think about when I was a young man, young boy, I should say, the teachers in my life early on at this elementary school, elementary school, I saw them as really important people. I would see them meeting with my mom and dad when I was 5, 6 years old, talking to them in Spanish and English, helping them with job applications or how to read a letter from the doctor, things like that. I thought that was really amazing that they have these sort of skills. And so to me, it was always something powerful, something to look up to. Yeah.
And Dr. Solis, really, you have actually leveraged those experiences to take you where you are today as a teacher and also as a professor. I just want to reflect to the previous panels real quickly, which I enjoyed listening to. All the panels who came in here, panelists who came in here, including the moderators, all these important messages that they gave us this morning. And also to reflect on Doris' opening remarks as well in terms of asking us to really say, let's also look at the real challenges in education. It's not just only that we could push like this, because we always have barriers. The numbers that you read this morning are troubling numbers. And I think that the reason that we're all here coming to work as a community together is to address those numbers, is to have the space. The gentlewoman right there at the back talked about the space and having us build that community. I'm sorry I forgot your name. But as we talk about this, I think that we're building on those words as well as the other panelists. So you should be asking me the same question I asked you, but I'll answer myself. That's okay, right? The single experience that led me to take this path. So I come from a different background. I grew up under apartheid in South Africa. Apartheid is just same, not similar, not the same, similar to, if people understand what the Jim Crow laws were in the United States. So growing up in South Africa as a black boy and in a black-only neighborhood, where if I were to go to a white or colored or Indian neighborhood, I was otherized the same way, right? So we had only 3 careers in black communities. Only 3. It's, if you're a woman, you should either become a teacher or a nurse. If you're a man, you don't even think about nursing, you should become a teacher or a police officer. Right? So those are the 3 careers growing up. But what I want to underscore here today is schools for us, or at least for me, I'll just say that, were the sites of resistance. So that's where you say, well, here's a school. And who were the people there who were helping us to lead the school as a site of resistance? Those were black teachers. And I don't want to homogenize black teachers and say all black teachers were critical, but most black teachers
would always be holding us by their hands, by our hands, by our hands, and say, here's what you want to do. Here's how you're going to be successful. This is a tough environment, apartheid. So, I think even if there were other careers where I've become an engineer or, I think I would still want to become a teacher so that I could model and exemplify what they've done for me. I mean, and I'm not here to talk about myself as much. I'm just going to say one more thing and give it back to you. I'm a first generation, right, in my family. I did not have anybody at home to tell me, okay, when you finish school, you're going to do this or finish school. But I always received that from my teachers. So that's what propelled me to do that.
I'm going to start asking you more questions.
Okay. Start making more questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say exactly what catalyzes us to be where we are now, but I do know my folks, they both grew up in a small town in Michoacan, and literally one room schoolhouse that are bringing a teacher to this town, and everyone from 5 to 18 years old would go to school, so they finished 2nd grade. And so when they come to this country, they would often talking about saying things like getting a profession in Spanish, for which I studied for. So that was really important for them, to do a job for which you studied for, right? Una carrera, right? And so, to them it was always more education. More education is good. And so, of course, they were my first teachers, and,
right.
and they always talked to me in Spanish, and I think that sustained me. The memories of our family, of their experiences throughout their life, and the lessons that we learned. But you're right. I think when we talk about education, it's hard to talk about education and schooling without talking about how do I say it? The problematics, right. the social context, right. which are implicated in classrooms and schools, and which are tied to social justice issues, which are tied to historical social reproductive issues, but there's a lot of possibilities for change as well. So that's why I think about Mr. Matsueda sometimes, and so I was really happy to hear the panelists from before in San Antonio talk about that, and not ignoring the fact that it's tough, and there's a lot of things happening all the time. One more story from my first year teaching.
Please.
First day of school, principal says, you got to teach this and this. Cool, where are my books? I feel more comfortable talking about this guy because I would really hesitate about sharing this story with you in public, and I will. Where are my books? My class said, Mr. Solis, ex-school, halfway down the road here, just got rid of their books. You might be able to find them in the dumpster. If you're quick, you can go find them, right? So I'm in a dilemma now. What am I gonna do? Am I gonna literally go get some books that were thrown away from some other school and give those books to my children, to my students? Or am I gonna say, forget you, Principal X, you need to give me and buy me the books. School starts today or tomorrow, right? So what do I do? What do I do? There I am, driving over to the school, jump in the dumpster, get my class set, so I can use something for class the next day. Wow. All right. So these are impossible dilemmas, right, that we have sometimes as educators. This is just an example. I'm not saying this is unique to me, but there is a real big problem around just resource allocation, inequities in school funding, historical marginalization of certain communities. What the hell is this principal telling me that I have to go to this other school to get my, why didn't you order books for me, right? So anyway, so this is getting back to your issue, and as teachers, you're constantly bombarded with these things about you and your care of students and the families and all these things. So I think there's a lot of things that are hard for us to talk about, but we need to talk about them.
Yeah, things that make us uncomfortable, which whether or not they make us uncomfortable, but we should be talking about. So I agree with you. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Salas. You know, Dr. Lara, earlier on, I was listening to him as I was nervous getting ready to play this role. And I looked at him, he's so relaxed. Dr. Lara, how do you do this? Everybody now is so relaxed. But,
you're doing great now.
Okay, good. Yeah. But Dr. Lara said a word that was saying, okay, this question is about impact. I said, okay, I'm going to also ask that question, and I'm going to ask that to you, Dr. Salas.
And I'm going to ask you.
Okay, good. I will do that. All right. Tell us a little bit about your role as a male teacher of color and the impact you've had on the lives of students.
Wow, that's a hard question, but I'll say it in two ways. One, I think as a teacher, classroom teacher working with young men, young women, children, the impact you have on them, sometimes it's hard to see right away. I mean, you will not see the real deep impact until years later many times. Years later, I don't think, I think we are asked as teachers to say assessment and grades and things like that, and graduation, I think those are all good things. But in the long run, I think this is sort of the impact we want to see. We want to see folks have career options, have lives that they can choose and think about. I just recently, I got a short story. I went back home to East Palo Alto and taking my mom, yes, taking her to church, right? And as soon as I leave the car, someone drives by me, gets out of the car, starts talking. I'm like, who's this guy? Like, 25, not actually 30 years probably. One of my former students from 20 years ago telling me he's having a baby, he got his degree, and he's now the director of a school program, right? And he's late for his next session, right? So we're like, oh, and this is like, he was, I remember him, and he was telling me stories about other students I had and what they're doing, where they're working, and so those are gratifying validations of the work you did, or not even the work, the experiences you shared with folks as a teacher. So I think as a classroom teacher, I feel good about that. I feel good about being able to do that. It's not always that way. I've had my cases of having to go to court a few times to be a witness or to file for some testimony for something someone might have done, got in the wrong position, right? Or anyway. So what I'm saying is, we have to, I think about that. I think about the ways that I try to support some of my students. I used to do a lot of family visits. I know a lot about some families, thank you. And so those are all things. But as a professor now, a university professor, I think the things that I feel good about is getting students graduated, getting them certified to be teachers, and getting ready to get into the job market by giving them letters of recommendation, by getting ready for these exams, and keep reminding them that this is something they can do. You can do this. You can graduate, get out of profession, and people want you. People really want you to be out there. And school HR is open, right? Those HR departments are knocking on the door right now, and they want you. So these are things that I feel that we're trying to have an impact, and I feel like once we get them in the door, we can do that.
Yeah, nicely said. I know we're enjoying ourselves, but then I realize that we have just 5 more minutes.
Yes.
So we have to hurry up, and because all this enjoyment will be over soon.
So what's your impact?
Mine is very small.
Yeah, what's your impact?
I don't know if I have any impact.
Yeah.
But I could be honestly say that the emails I received from students, and when students say, I want to talk to you about this, or they would say, Dr. Demande, have you read my autobiography? And where they may have said things that they need support. So, but I cannot quantify that. I don't know for myself, but I struggle in terms of looking at it whether it's a big impact or a small impact. But one of the cases that may have been like 3 semesters ago, and Dr. Ryan knows about this, and an undergraduate student who really wrote an intense autobiography to a point where I had to take it to her. And so we even thought about if you're not open to students in class, probably she may not have revealed all these things to you, right? So those are kind of the partial things for me to see moving the needle. But again, I can't judge myself. I'll have to wait for Dr. Ryan to say you're moving the needle.
He's moving the needle.
Okay. So, Dr. Salis, we're gonna go to our last question.
Okay.
And we don't get you but your script because I modified that question a little bit, knowing that you could tell us more. I want us to just move from the actual individual student and move in the community in terms of the transformation of communities. I wrote societies, but I meant to say communities. Do you see any role of teachers of color play in transforming communities outside the classroom? It's a tough question, I know, but just think about it. Any role of us transforming community outside of the classroom?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can see evidence from that in the previous panelists. We see folks talking about working in the community, promoting more diversity within the hiring practices and even the ways policies are being written. So I do think, I know it's within the community, but it's trying to create more access. I had recently had a conversation with one of my students at UTSA. He was telling me about how he's a community organizer,
right?
And he's organizing for the union as a teacher, and he's not being called around the country, and I had nothing to do with that. But I think as professors or university folks, we can support that kind of work in our classrooms by bringing life to that work that's going on, and valuing it, and giving them resources and adapting what we have. So it's not always about the standards or these other things, but really helping them make connections to things they're doing in the community, where there's organizing, creating sort of social change agendas. So I think we can learn that as professors by adapting what we're doing.
And I think Dr. Solis, you're doing that already, and you've been doing it for many years. I'm just thinking of what Dr. Flores is doing with us in the college to say, how do we go into the communities, and instead of waiting the communities to come to us. And that is part of what the leaders, including Nudine and all our leaders in here, the non-profit organizations who are in here, all of you in here. So I am thinking of, trying to answer my own questions, which I don't have answers to, but I did ask you. I think that coming from the black community where we were the first generation to graduate high school, first generation, you appear on the paper and everybody's gonna read your book and say, wow, you did graduate high school. It was so rare. That's where your role will be also to go to communities and say, let's talk about the voters' education. What does it mean for us to go in and vote? What voting entails, right? How can you read this? How can you understand things? Just connecting with parents. You mentioned this earlier on, right? Do you know the HEB where your students shop?
Yes.
No, I'm not, that's sort of rhetorical, right? Yes, right. I'm just asking everybody. So exactly, thank you so much. I think for us in here, all of us in here, is to say this shouldn't be ending in the classroom, because the classroom should be an extension of communities. I mean, our male teachers, where do they come from? They come from communities, right? They live in those marginalized communities. So, Dr. Salis, I'm going to give you the last word in here. I'm done talking. You're going to close this. I'll give you the last word.
No, I was thinking about one of the titles for this session, and we do get folks coming from the community college context into education, and they come from two-year colleges, and a lot of times because they're trying to get more success before they could transfer, and so they come in, and I see a lot of challenges they face, and something I would say to those folks who transfer is that you can do it, but try not to work too hard on having 3 or 4 jobs. We see students coming in who have all kinds of jobs, and it's really hard to sustain yourself. And so I encourage students to seek help, please seek support. We call it office hours, but we should probably call it something else, so people feel more welcome. And maybe this is what it means to be here, right? I think you have a 2-year window to finish your degree, and I really encourage folks who do come from 2-year situations to think about, this is 2 years where you might have to sacrifice a little bit to get done, maybe work a little bit less. I know it's really hard. So I do see male teachers, especially having difficulty with that, having to make ends meet as they try to finish their degree. And so we're trying to figure out ways. I think Dr. Force's work out there has been trying to figure out ways to do that by giving them some kind of pay as they do their student teaching along the way. And I think that's helping make that transition more viable, because there is a lot of economic hardship that goes along with being a full-time student. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And as we share our gifts of appreciation for your time, this has been such a beautiful conversation. So many elements of the idea of education, teaching, barriers, the opportunities, the beautiful stories. I'm definitely feeling so inspired and have some nuggets that I want to take to my work. And I know each of us has been thinking about, what is this conversation teaching me, and what does that mean for the work that I do, regardless of where you sit. We have one more venue, one more great conversation to dive into before we close out our time together today at noon. So we'll make this next break quick. Listen for Gladys' clapping that will bring us back together. And then if our last panelist would please join us in the front. Thank you so much.
Thank you for connecting.
I was really inspired by you guys. I'm a teacher in San Antonio. I teach 4th and 5th grade in South San Antonio. And it's really cool. It's quite out there, man. Like, hearing everyone else's stories, everyone's going through two different situations. Wow, yeah, it's really nice. I teach 4th grade, 4th and 5th grade. No, it's a co-teaching situation. So I'll teach math and science, and the other teacher I teach social and reading. And it's my favorite level. I think I know our student development is psychological development. Working credits, I feel like out of it. Like something about that age, they're old enough to work independently, and they're having accents in themselves, and they can work in groups, and generally can say it's getting better at that point. Like around 16, that's when they start waking up a little bit. 17, that's when they start becoming more like focused. I did too. Every grade level, from preschool all the way to advanced AP, physics, whatever. But how about you?
I use the football, we're loosely, right? We are like aware of themselves.
Alright, I'm really excited for this fourth panel because it kind of ties all the pieces together. I'm Dr. Alonzo Flowers. I am an associate professor at UTSA. I'm also the department chair at ELPS, the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. I'm fairly new. I relocated here from Philadelphia in August. but I'm originally from San Antonio, so this is kind of a homecoming for me. I'm a graduate of SAIC, Jefferson High School. I'm a graduate of Texas A&M. Got my PhD from there, and I'm also a graduate of UTSA. Actually, the department I'm the department chair for. I graduated with my master's degree there. So I've been around San Antonio for a very long time. So coming back here was twofold professionally. Dr. Torres, my dean, made me an offer for Critic Reviews, but also I came here for my family. I'm from San Antonio. I have my husband, my oldest son's here, and we wanted to be closer to home and family, and we were in San Antonio. And so it's really exciting to be here and be part of this conversation. My work situates itself in this space. My PhD work, my research focuses on African American Latino males in STEM primarily, and how they form senses of identity. And so I look at asset-based achievement and look at positive reinforcement as a motivator for success and matriculation in STEM in areas. I also look at leadership and leadership development and how leaders take on a sense of identity formation, positive formation, and their practices. And so this whole panel, the whole conversation is leading to this point, but I can see my work kind of matriculating through. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with the panelists. Like a true department chair, I had a lot going on this week, and I left my bios at home. And so I don't have the description of the panel members, so I'm gonna let them do that. But then I'll also ask the questions after they introduce themselves. Thank you so much.
Sure. So I'm Eddie Musquiz Rodriguez. I am currently principal of Casmet High School, which is located in San Antonio ISD. We are a brand new high school. It started about 4 years ago. I say 5 because I had 1 year to plan. 4 years ago, we are an entity of H-E-B Groceries, but we are a public school located at Brooks City Base, and we are currently recruiting 9th and 10th graders into our program. 35 years in education. I started out as a middle school science teacher in Edgewood, and then I went to become a high school teacher at Kennedy High School, which I loved. I loved Kennedy High School. Oh my God, that was the most amazing place. The first high school named in the country for President Kennedy, who unfortunately went to Dallas, was supposed to come back to a 9th grader school, and he didn't come back. And then taught there. Then I became a curriculum person for science and mathematics. In Edgewood, I spent 24 years in the school district, opened up the first STEM school in the city, which is the Toltec T-STEM Academy. And then when I was there, I was called by Harlandale to go help them open a school, which was a STEM school. I'll never forget this, I have to tell you the story. So I go to Harlandale, they say, we need your assistance, can you please just teach us how do you open a STEM school? Because we're gonna open up a STEM Early College High School. And I said, well, you do this, this. The superintendent asked everyone to leave, and I was ready to get up. He said, no, sit down, I need to talk to you. He says, how'd you like to work for us? I said, sir, let me tell you something. I live in Edgewood. I went to school in Edgewood. I work in Edgewood. And when I die, I'll be buried in South Fernando, which is in Edgewood. Edgewood is in my heart and soul. And he gets a little piece of paper. He says, we'll pay you this much. Okay, where do I sign? So I went to Harlandale, opened up the Harlandale State College High School. Super successful. I was there for 5 years. And then went to open the current school, which is Casmet High School. Been there for 5 years, which again is a phenomenal place. We're a dual language campus. Our students take Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, Pre-Cal, and Chemistry completely in Spanish. We're taking kids to Mexico City and to the city of Puebla and to the pyramids. We did that with another CAS school. We're going again. Just came back from Mexico City this weekend. We're going again with kids. I'm super excited for the opportunities that we're offering kids. I'm also an adjunct professor at Texas A&M in San Antonio, where I teach teachers how to become science teachers. So that's my life.
Here.
Did you find a bio? Because sometimes I tend, and this is just for me, I tend to deflect the attention, but it's just an honor to be here, and you know, and I attribute my success to a lot of things, and probably too numerous to mention here, and just proud to lead an institution that is so unapologetically dedicated to improving the lives of those, the children's and families and communities that have been historically overlooked and ignored. And as Dean, I'm not going to allow that to continue. I think that is a message as dean that I would like woven throughout everything we do. And I think as a university, we are doing that as well. There's still much work to do. I am in my second year in this position as dean. We have 6 wonderful departments, wonderful faculty who are doing meaningful, impactful work in the communities. My journey's interesting because my journey has, at least for 2 of these individuals, I was on his dissertation committee. I haven't seen him in years. When he was at A&M, and then, you know, I was your faculty advisor, maybe you were my graduate assistant, right, at Texas A&M. So I spent almost 20 years at Texas A&M in College Station as a professor. Out of Penn State, I went to Penn State for my graduate degree, and I knew when I started studying that I wanted to have some influence on the lives. And as some of you mentioned, Jorge, you mentioned it, and Dr. Ndamande, you know, it's really hard to tell when you're having an impact. Sometimes it happens in very direct ways, other times very indirect. I've traveled the world. I mean, I've met with ministers of education. I've been a professor, visiting professor in China, Shanghai, and other places in China. I've recently met with the Minister of Education in Egypt. And I've had these varied life experiences that have helped kind of shape my lens on education. And I know that colleges of education can't do this alone. We need to engage the community in very thoughtful ways. And I just look forward to working with the people in this room, but I think part of the message will be here that this needs to be a coordinated strategic effort that integrates and involves every part of this community. And I think we have some opportunities. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Bedrettin Yazan, and I'm an associate professor at the Department of Bicultural Bilingual Studies at the College of Education and Human Development at UTSA. This is my 3rd year in San Antonio in Texas. I'm originally from Turkey, next to Iraq. Somebody mentioned Iraq earlier. I moved to Maryland in order to pursue my PhD degree at the University of Maryland College Park. And finishing my degree, I moved to University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa. I worked there with teacher candidates in world languages and ESL for 6 years. I learned a lot about American history there, a lot. And then I, decided to move to some other university, and UTSA was the best choice and my only choice. And I've been liking it so far. And I'm glad that we're having such events so I can get connected with the communities more, because I started during COVID, so it was not fun not to be interacting with anyone in the communities. Yeah, that's pretty much about me, in terms of where I'm coming from. My research is looking at teacher identities and how teacher candidates become who they are by bringing in all their identities to the classroom, all their stories, which are really valuable to me as a teacher educator. I also do the same thing. I bring, Dr. Ndamande was mentioning, autobiographies. I bring my autobiography to the classroom. I just tell them my stories. I practice vulnerability with them. That's one of the main, my little pedagogical innovation that I work with these days. But yeah, so it's really, huge honor to be here, and I've loved all the panels. I am a better listener than a speaker, unless I drink too much coffee or booze. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
So this 4th panel is really about advancing career opportunities in education, and that's broad, right? So the first couple panels we talked about K-12 teachers and teacher education in that space. I love being the moderator for this panel because I kind of toe the line between all of them. I started my career in K-12. I was a teacher, I was a dean of students, I was an administrator. And when you're in that space in K-12, there's the upward mobility, to talk about career, the next option is always like, you want to be a principal? And I was like, no. I don't want to deal with parents or buses. And so as an academic person, I just didn't want to deal in that world. I mean, I love dealing with academics, I love getting students ready for college. And so when I got the opportunity to go to Texas A&M to get my PhD, they were like, what are you going to focus on? Well, higher education. And so that's the balance. So our students in K-12 are going to college, they're going to community colleges, they're going to four-year universities, but we don't blend the two. And so by nature, I'm a P20 scholar. And some of my new colleagues and my faculty, they're K-12 and they're higher ed trained specifically. I'm in between, and so I'm the glue in my department. And so really blending those conversations, talking about how do we merge K-12 and higher education, and talk about the intersection of what we do as professionals. And so this conversation is really important to me. And so I think it's important to start out and think about the panelists and talk about the opportunities that you had to advance your own careers. And again, you got their bios, I'm glad I left the bios at home because it gave more in-depth introduction to the panelists, but really talk about how you personally advance your career in education and the field of education as a whole.
Well, I think I was very, very blessed my whole life. When I was in elementary school in Edgewood, I never had a teacher who was the same color as me. I was taught only by white teachers, and it was amazing. They loved us, they took care of us. They must have read books on culturally responsive teaching, because we celebrated everything that was Hispanic. We did everything. I had a teacher who was from Japan, Nico Foster. We learned about the Japanese culture, who I probably never would have learned had I not had a Japanese teacher at that grade. I had a Russian teacher, I had a teacher from Ireland, and everybody else was either a German teacher from New Braunfels or somewhere, and it was beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, honestly, it was great. Then I went to middle school and I had a Hispanic teacher, and it all went to shit. I'm sorry. And I'll tell you why. Because this teacher apparently gave us a lot of the sorry story, the poor viejito syndrome set in. It was like, you know what, I know school is hard, you know, let me make it easy for you. Let me give you a break. Oh, you don't have to turn that in. Oh, you don't have to do this. It was not challenging. And that's my fear. That's my biggest fear, okay? That people of the same color will do the poor viejito syndrome, and it hurts instead of helps. So I was very fortunate that I had teachers that I had, and I was a very good student. I mean, my mother, I think we're the only family of 4 kids that did what my mother told us to do, because she never allowed us to be absent from school. Never. The 4 of us went to school, 100% attendance from kinder to the day we graduated from the university. It's unbelievable, but that was the expectation. My dad went to work, she was a housewife, we went to school, and that's the way, no questions asked. That opened up opportunities because we were learning, we were good kids, we were the top kids in schools. So when I went to college, I was well prepared because I was always in school. I went to Holy Cross High School. We used to call it Holocaust High School because they hate you, they get you up. It was crazy. But the expectations were very, very high by the brothers, nuns, and priests. And we learned and we succeeded. So opportunities, yes, opportunities came, but we were well prepared to accept those opportunities. Otherwise, we would not have had those opportunities. So when I went to teaching later, I always studied, I always read, I always tried to become that best teacher. I had a student, I remember this parent came and told me, my child is, my first year, 21 years old. First year, 21 years old. Parent comes and says, I have a child, my child is dyslexic. Please take care of my child because sometimes his dyslexia is worse than the other days. Please watch him. Will you please? I said, yeah, no problem. I closed the door. I said, what the hell is dyslexia? I hope I don't catch him. I didn't remember. So that afternoon, I went to St. Mary's University where I got my undergrad. And I went to the basement where all the books were in the library for teachers. And I looked at dyslexia and said, oh, I know what this is. No problem. For a whole month, I went to learn about dyslexia. I had to get ready to help this kid. I was not going to let this kid fail. So I studied and I studied and I studied and I studied. 2 months later, the mother comes and she says, my son loves your class. He's being so successful. Yeah, I was using all the strategies and techniques and methods because I had to help this kid be successful. That opened up opportunities because people saw that I could help kids that had dyslexia. I prepared myself for those opportunities. So the door opened where I became a curriculum person. And I love doing lesson plans. I love it. I love research. I love bringing in resources. I love that stuff. People would tell me, Eddie, that's like doing income tax. How can you love it? I love it. And the opportunity came for me to actually open up a school. And I opened up the first school. And then I opened up another school. And now I'm at third school in San Antonio, impacting thousands of kids. But the opportunities came because I prepared myself. And yes, luck. And yes, knowing people. And yes, being, that kind of person that's gonna be likable, all this kind of stuff. You gotta play the game right? But again, opportunities did come to me. As a Hispanic male teacher, the opportunities came, but it was because I prepared myself. And there's a lot of people who say, well, they always pass me up, well, are you reading, are you studying, are you getting ready? What are you doing? What are you doing to get ready for those opportunities? And all of us who are sitting in this room who have doctors or masters or just as teachers, we know it's hard. And if we're advancing, it's because we're preparing ourselves for those opportunities. It's happened to me.
For me, it's quite remarkable where I am, if you reflect back to how things started. And I often quip when I say, if you go back to my high school teachers and you ask them, share some memories about Mario Torres, their likely responses to be, Mario who? Who is this guy? And it wasn't without trying. My experiences in the public school system early on, I certainly have fond memories of particular people along the way who were sincerely, and I mean sincerely interested in a lot of the panelists have talked about those, and I'm sure everybody in this room has had a pivotal moment where you've come across somebody and your view changes on things. And that happened to me. It actually happened early on. You might remember during a period when corporal punishment was a standard in public schools, and I was a victim to spanking and standing in corners and writing on chalkboards and carrying encyclopedias, and I'm not that old either. And all of that stayed with me. And I'm thinking, is this what education means? Is this what education represents? And along the way, I had critical experiences, and many of them involved male teachers with whom I could identify and trust. And the really interesting part of this is that sometimes it's so happenstance. It's not intentional, but somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, have you thought about this? And to think about what are the possibilities if all of us together taps the shoulders of those in schools to say, you can do this, rather than it being such a randomized experience. And this is actually carried on throughout life, where even at the undergraduate level, and I have to thank my wife, who received a grant to do a bilingual master's degree. And some of these individuals were part of that federally subsidized program, right? And bicultural, bilingual studies. And I was a teacher at Rogers Middle School, and that's a very interesting story because I also taught at the San Antonio ISD. And it's interesting how your perception of education is shaped by the people with whom you interact. So a lot of times people are saying you want to be in Northside and you want to be in Northeast. And my parents, who were both, my father was a teacher in Harlandale ISD and my mother at SAISD, said, take this job. And so I did. And it wound up being one of the most amazing blessings in my career. And it was so illuminating and enlightening to engage with communities that encountered struggles, but had so many assets. Abel, who's, I don't know if he's here, talked about the assets within these communities, the cultural assets, the work assets. You know, some of you might be familiar with the work of Luis Moll and the Funds of Knowledge has stuck with me because every community has a treasure trove of cultural and intellectual assets. I can't remember who was talking about the tendency is always bring the doctor and to bring the lawyer, but not recognize the stories of those individuals that have overcome incredible obstacles. Even, you know, right now, the story of immigration in this country, and those people who want to come here and seek a better life. Those, to me, are transformative stories that we don't value as an educational community enough. So all I'm saying here is, yes, I mean, for me, my journey has been informed indirectly. Sometimes it's just been a timely experience, but a lot. And there's individuals, and they're not just professors, but sometimes there's chant encounters on the street. I'll tell you right now, what I've heard this morning on the panels has changed. So I think all of you share in that in some way our worldview has changed.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, being here has been transformative for me this morning. I am so happy to be here and listening to you all and all 4 panels. So the opportunities, I was just checking the question because I forgot. Opportunities I had, you know, growing up, my parents, they were both elementary school graduates, and I grew up in a village like, you know, 800, 900 people. And in our elementary school, the teachers were coming from the city, so they didn't live in the village. So at that time, I was just, you know, as a kid, I didn't I was fascinated by the fact that our teachers were coming from somewhere else, but also I was sad a little bit, why did they not live in the village, right? So then I was telling myself, why, you know, someone from the village is not our teacher? So again, very small building. My class was just 8 people, actually 9, but you know, because the nurse moved out of the village, you know, he was the nurse's son, so we got, you know, 8 people in our class. Very fun. We played a lot of soccer during recesses. Recesses were really long. I just remember having multiple games. So I think the motivation we were being, I don't know, I was receiving the message that you should get out of the village, right? I didn't want to, but you know, for education I needed to, because we only had primary school, like 5 years of education in the village. I didn't know about kindergarten until after I started, you know, middle school. Then I needed to move to the middle school, and you know, I stayed in the dorms, like for you know, underserved communities, subsidized by the government. I was really, you know, fortunate and really grateful for that. And I went to, I moved to another town. I stayed in the dorm as a 12-year-old kid, and just, you know, I never went back to the village. I mean, I did to visit, but my dream has always been to go back and just, you know, work with the underserved communities in the village in rural Turkey. That dream, you know, I took it with me to high school, and it was an interesting high school, actually, you know, similar to CAST, you know, high schools here. It was a teacher training high school. In the past, those, you know, graduates from that kind of high school would become teachers, but in our time, they discontinued that. We needed to go to, you know, college too for teacher education degrees. And like starting from, you know, it was a 4-year high school, and first year was all English. I started learning English in high school. It was fun. I really liked my English teacher, who was also a male immigrant who just moved from Bulgaria due to the ethnic cleansing there in 1980s. So he was my first role model as a teacher. And in middle school, I just really wanted to become a math teacher. I really loved math. Then in high school, because of that, you know, teacher, I started liking English a lot, languages in general. Then our linguistics teacher in high school, he was also a male teacher who was writing plays. We were just acting in those plays. It was really fun. I think the high school, the teacher training high school has changed my direction because I remember one day after the second year we needed to just change our tracks or find a track for ourselves. And there were multiple tracks. One of them was English or foreign language. The other one was STEM, and the other one was like social studies. And after the second year, my chemistry teacher bumped into me in the hallway. Like he was asking, which track are you going to choose? I said, I'm going to choose the foreign language English track. I want to become a teacher. He goes, don't you want to become an engineer? I said, no, I want to become a teacher. I think that moment I was so decisive, and then he just went away. I really wanted to become a teacher. Then I went to the college, again, teacher education, program. I changed the city. So every time I changed school, I changed the city. Just moved away from my family with the dream of coming back and just serving the village or the rural Turkey as a teacher. But the other day I was writing this positionality statement for an article that I'm working on. And I just, I was thinking, so what happened to that dream, right? So coming back to, maybe a full circle, maybe I'm just telling that to myself to make myself feel better about that goal. I kept, working in ESL, I still feel that I am serving the communities of marginalized communities, linguistically and culturally. Teaching teachers how to work with, ethno-linguistically marginalized communities. I think that's my goal. That's where I feel home or at home. That's why probably San Antonio feels a lot better than College Park, Maryland. So where I went to school. Opportunities, yeah. So I've had I think the other very significant opportunity was to move out of Turkey to the U.S. for my PhD degree, and I'm still wondering why the heck University of Maryland just hired me as a teaching assistant all the way from Turkey and then paid for my PhD. I still don't understand. But yeah, I'm glad they did, and I'm glad I stayed around here and stuck around. Never thought about going back to Turkey because Turkey has changed, I have changed. Anyway, so that's going into my own autobiography right there. But yeah, there was a great opportunity, and the last opportunity I received was from UTSA. Just hiring me and then believing in me that I could just keep growing as a teacher educator, helping the teacher candidates who are working with minoritized communities here in San Antonio and beyond.
Thank you for sharing. And as you can all see, the field of education is a broad spectrum, right? And so as we think about the missing male color in K-12 education, I want you to also think about the missing leaders, the male leaders in K-12 or higher ed education or community college education. So if you're really interested, shameless plug, but if you're interested in the leadership track, come see me, PhD Masters at ELPS, because we really focus on making sure that we, one, train the next generation of leaders through a critical social justice lens, but we talk about those missing pieces, like the black men leaders, the black teachers, and those impacts on the student experience. Just one anecdote for myself is that through my trajectory, my professional and educational trajectory, I've never had a black teacher until I got to UTSA, Dr. Fred Bonner. And Dr. Fred Bonner changed the trajectory of my life. He's the reason why I went to A&M, got my PhD. Because as a teacher, when I was a K-12 teacher, no one ever talked about professor or what a professor looks like, or how do you navigate that professional trajectory. Until I had a conversation with Dr. Fred Bonner. And so I always give him praise and thanks for that, because I wouldn't be here today in this seat, in this space, and as a leader of my department. And another piece is that I'm the first African-American male, and I don't know if I told the dean this, but I talked to my colleagues about this, first African-American male department chair in the college. I'm thinking I might be the first African-American male in the UTSA, I think I might be. And so those are representations important. And it goes all the way back to my experience at Jefferson High School. I was in RTC. I don't know if you want to look about RTC, but the top student in the senior year, the battalion commander, you run the RTC. And I was the first and only, since I left, African American male battalion commander in Jefferson's history. And so come full circle, coming back to San Antonio. and be in that space and being the first of something. And hopefully I'm not the last. And so I think it's really important. So these conversations are really impactful, and so all the young teachers and professionals that are talking, come see me. But I got the stop sign, so I'm going to close out and modify the last question. And just as a quality researcher, this is a great question. Just give one word that expresses your experience as an educator and how, or educator leader, and how it's impacted your life to this point. One word.
Say student success.
Blessing.
I think passion and compassion and vulnerability and accepting that.
Well, thank you all for coming, experiencing
We do have a couple of closing items, so really quickly, we'll transition to Dr. Lara to close us out in our synthesis, and then we just have some final calls to action and some upcoming engagements. So just 2 more minutes.
Well, I'll leave the words next. So, as we're closing this, the key learnings from the first panel on growing your own. There's quite a bit there, and someone tried to connect these, but we learned that we need to affirm students, their assets that they bring to them. But here's one thing that I've been toying with, like in the last couple of years, affirming like the community assets as well, because I think that we need to think about how we craft narratives sometimes that sort of hurt teacher education as well. I'll give you an example. So when we are always telling the students that they need to make it out, they didn't make it out, you know, we don't always position the communities as having values, having assets, right? My students in one of my classes do Caminatas, which are community walks, and the very first semester they did one here. And so I got to learn about this beautiful candle right here, and I was like, wow, that's like amazing, right? But if we always position the community as something that you have to make it out, you have to make it out of the hood, out of the barrio, then, you know, we forget all this. We say that they have to, you know, leave all this behind. And so the way that hurts teacher education is that if we're not giving them the tools to come back to their own community, they're not going to come back and teach in their own communities, because it's a group where we're positioning them as places that they need to leave or escape from, right? And so we also need to draw on the navigational capital that we have as educators, because we've made it here, we made it there, and so there's a lot of that navigational capital that we can still impart on, and especially if they don't have it yet, for whatever reason, you know, socioeconomic status and all that. For the second one, for the male teacher pillar insights, we have a lot of homework to do, you know, with the ontological and epistemological shifts in how we recruit teachers, like in the schools, so that's one of them. How we see teachers in the community. We have to reimagine teaching in our narrative of the profession, you know, so that teachers aren't just seen as these disciplinarians. Oh, we're gonna get a guy because he's gonna be good for the kids, but good in the manner of like, they're gonna be the strict one that's gonna bring the hammer down. Rather than that, teachers also, young men also have the ability to care, and not just like in this like lovey-huggy, they do that as well, but they care about their communities as well. Rene Anzar Gonzalez talks about critical care, hard caring, where it's a good measure of not having that pobrecito syndrome that you're talking about. Like you have to have that good measure of high stakes, the rigor, but also a high amount of caring. Because without both, if you have too much of one or not enough of the other, it leads to some issues. And the third one here for the cultivating community college students, you know, we're looking at ways that we want to improve also the community. So let's think about planting seeds in those places, because a lot of these students. And in an article that I published at the AMI Journal, a lot of them had come in. I noticed that through the community college into the high school, into college, and when they first went in, they didn't have teaching in their vocabulary. They wanted to go into business. They wanted to go into any other profession, but teaching. But somebody along the way said, "Hey, what about teaching?" I said, "I thought about that, but planting that seed, eventually they make their way there." And so it's about planting those seeds, and especially drawing from where those folks that are there and elevating the resources that they do have already. And for the last one here, for the diverse roles, I think we need to also understand that that there's a lot of rewarding professions that come with teaching, right? All the rewards that come with it, but then also how that leads to other jobs. I get to talk to kids once a year at the career day. It'll happen this Friday at my kid's school. And when I'm there, I always plant that seed also as well. Hey, you can be teachers, by the way, you can be teachers. They want to know what I do. But I tell them I was a teacher for a while, but I wanted to learn more about how kids learn language. And so that's why I left the teaching profession to learn about that. Now I teach a teacher, so your teachers are maybe my students, and they get there, they're like, ooh. But so in closing, there's a lot, this is really neat, it's like very cathartic. It was very affirming. A lot of memories came back from when I was a teacher. Eventually, the kids do come back and say, "Hey, I made it. I graduated. Send you a picture." So it's always neat to see that as well. But hopefully, this has been helpful for you. And then I'll hand it over to Lex.
Well, we're mindful of time. We want to honor your time and your weekend. So we have just our closing survey. We invite you. Your feedback is a gift to us at City Education Partners. It's a gift to us at UTSA. It is a gift to all of us as we think of this initiative within MEMIS, as we think of the work to come with the Male Teacher of Color Collaborative in strengthening our work. So we invite you to elevate your feedback through our closing survey, and also there will be an opportunity there for continued ways as we think of how we can influence within our spheres of influence, within your respective roles, your respective organizations, and also identify where is there opportunity for intersectionality and intersections of our collaborative efforts and work. We're in San Antonio, the only city with a shared community vision, and we're also a unique city that is about shared action as well. So thank you all for being here and your extended minutes. We will close. We invite you to continue networking with each other, grab some food, some bites on your way out, and also enjoy. You're in the heart of the West Side. So thank you all so much for today.
Oh, you guys were together. Oh, wow, great. Oh, that's nice. That's what I originally wanted to do out of Brown Young. Here I am teaching. That's cool. Oh, you have a card. I saw the
You the first one. Because I